Hi, I'm Ralph Preston. Every Tuesday, we have these Stroke Buddies Recovery and Science Zoom meetings where we try and bring you some useful information for your recovery. And today, John Lumis and I are back, and we're going to finish up this talk about functional therapy. That's using your affected side for everything you can, and home exercise and therapy, which we both feel is pretty important. And these are both big subjects, so we just touched a little bit on home exercise last time, so we thought we'd do it again and delve into it. So welcome, John, and thanks for your time. And why don't you tell us a little bit about what, right after your stroke, what you got you involved in realizing you needed to go to do more than go to physical therapy once or twice a week? And I assume you
What?
started a home program. I'm pretty much sure I know you did.
Yeah, they, of course, they had me inpatient for a little over 3 weeks, and they kicked me out and sent me home. And then they started setting up 2 sessions a week for PT and 2 sessions for OT. And usually they're almost back to back, which was great. So I had to travel both times. Worked out well, but then I thought, man, I come home, I need to do something different than that. I need to be walking more, be more active. And as I got more comfortable being home, because you spend all your time in rehab, now you're home and getting familiar with your own home again, and the steps to walk here, the steps to walk backwards, making sure all the secondary carpets were taken up, all the runners were taken up, so they wouldn't create trip hazards. And I got a little ticked about that because I wanted the house the way it was when I left, so I could get comfortable in the way it was, the way I needed it to be, and not modified just for me. So I went and put all the rugs back down. Put the house back to normal, like more or less, than what the sheets had to do when I got home. And then I'd start working on myself, and the stuff they would teach me at therapy, I would go home and come home and try to duplicate it at home. Whether it was just moving my arms around, moving my legs around, getting on a recumbent bicycle here at home, just a standard bicycle to ride for a while. It's hard to do because you didn't have all the adaptive stuff you did at therapy, but you could modify things at home to do that. And that's what I kept working on more and more and more here at home.
Yeah, I had a total gym, but I couldn't get down on it and back up for a long time. That's always a problem.
Well, I got a full base. A quarter of my basement is full of gym equipment, which I purchased for my kids as they were growing up and doing sports, so they could have ways to stay physical with everything. And now, guess who gets to use all the equipment? It was like, okay, now how do I get on this? How do I do this? Get on and off the floor and everything else was the, oh well, my stuff now.
Right. It took me a little while, a few months before I could get on and off that total gym, or down on the floor and back up. It's not the simplest thing to do, but I think everybody ought to work towards it because there are a lot of good core exercises that you end up doing on the floor. You can do them on the bed if you can't get down. I always show people how do I adapt them on the, you can do clamshells. Push-ups are a little trickier, but a lot of the stuff you do on the floor, you can just do on the bed, which is a lot easier to get off and on.
Yeah, that's one thing they taught me the floor transfer before I left rehab.
They
But
did.
it's not mandated by any type of source that you have to be able to do that before you leave the inpatient rehab, which I'm a big believer that needs to be. That needs to be taught, and you better not perfect at it, but at least you get off the floor. Because they showed me how to do it for the book, which was to use my unaffected leg, but I felt unstable because it was like it's pushing me to the side, and I was just pushing me to the left, and my affected side, my left, and I couldn't get upright. So they said the patient had tried it a different way on the using their affected leg, and they felt it worked even better. They said, try it with your affected leg. And I got my leg underneath me, and they were right there with me, and I stood right up. They had a chair next to me, or the bed, the workout table was right there. So I was able to stand right up and did 3 or 4 times. I thought, this is pretty cool. I can do this. It still took a lot of arm strength to pull yourself up and push yourself because the leg wasn't strong enough yet. But I was doing it the opposite of the way the book was supposed to be.
Yeah, well, it's funny you should say that because, we've talked about body awareness and it's real important and paying attention to what works and what doesn't work for you. And I found the same thing. I didn't like pushing up with my unaffected leg either. The other thing was I thought pretty much right away, well, hey, if I'm going to push up and I'm trying to work on this affected leg, why don't I push up with the affected leg? And I did. And I did the same thing. I went from, having to pull up pretty hefty, pretty much pull up half my weight or push it up. Same with sit-to stands. I wasn't doing a sit-to stand like, what you should do is with your arms crossed, totally in neutral. But I didn't do that. Like most people, I pushed up and I didn't have much use of my left arm at all. So I pushed up pretty much with one side. Same with pulling up or pushing up from the floor. Yeah, they should probably teach you the technique. I'm not sure how many people could do it before they leave the rehab hospital because I was the same as you. I was in neurology for 5 days and I think 17 at the rehab hospital, just under 3 weeks typically. Like you reach some metric when as soon as you can feed yourself, start to transfer and go to the bathroom, they say, you're good, go home.
Yeah,
Go home
out the door.
go home and trip over all those carpets and rug runners.
No, but my OT, she sent, and I have the paper still. She wrote down a 2 page um, specification sheet that she hand wrote out for an hour of what to do when I got home, what to look for my wife at the time to look at things and say, okay, this needs to be up, carpets need to be up, you need to watch this here and there. I just took a piece of paper and crumbled up and threw it on my shoulder. I said, I ain't watching that thing. I'm not following your sheet. And she went, I spent an hour writing that paper.
Oh,
I
goodness.
still have it. And I showed it to her. I said, I still have that sheet of paper. It's all wrinkled up, but I still have it. I made copies of it. And she straightened it out and we made like 5 copies and handed it to my wife at the time and said, here's more copies of it. He throws the rest of them away too.
Well,
So
you'd think if she put an hour into it, she'd type it on the computer so she could just print it out.
she knew that I had different things that I wouldn't follow the standard procedures on stuff anyway.
Well, some adaptations or adaptions are which is it? Adaptations or adaptation? Anyway, I think either one's correct. Are necessary for some people. I didn't want to do anything to my house. They talked about putting up grab bars and everything for getting on and off the toilet. And I could squat. Almost to the ground and back up. In fact, the only thing my wife got, I didn't get a sheet like that. The only thing we got was 15 minutes of how to get on and off a toilet. And I already knew how to do it. I was doing sit-to stands. They got a pole there and, of course, the whole thing is silly because they have a fake toilet. Well, it's not fake, but it's not hooked up to
Yep.
anything. And a pole, like a pole dancer pole, floor to ceiling. And
You didn't have one at home already?
no, I didn't have one at home. No, I was going to make a bad joke about if my wife ever wanted a pole dance, we had it out in the living room or someplace where she had more space than next to the toilet, but that would be really that would be really bad, and I already did it, didn't I? Oops. Anyway, yeah, I didn't really want to adapt my house because, well, I wasn't using my left hand. I'm kind of a do-it-yourselfer like you, so hiring, when you're a guy and you do stuff yourself, you have a real hard time hiring other people to do anything for you. And I didn't want to hire anybody. I'm a cheapskate. I didn't want to have to pay for the stuff. And then the other thing was, I set my sights on getting better, so I didn't need it. And
Yeah.
I, whenever I say something like that, I am aware everybody out there who's, 2 years in and still in a wheelchair and working on sit-to stands. I know that what happened to me isn't what happened to everybody else out there. There are people that definitely need to do adaptations to the home. So if that's the case for you, you should do what's good for you. I have to resist in the groups. You may run into this, John, where they say something like, "Well, I can't do this." They're talking about adapting. I need to get something like this, and I'm always wanting to say, "Well, wait a minute. Why don't you fix the basic problem, which is getting your movement back, so that you don't need to adapt?" But that's not realistic for everybody out there.
Yeah, I wasn't a big fan of buying all the adaptive stuff, which they showed me different things. They give you a sheet on it every now and then. The students I work with would print sheets out. Well, you might try this, you might try this, or the college has some of that adaptive stuff there that we get to mess with a little bit. But it's like, okay, but I'm already doing this at home. I don't need this adaptive stuff. I've already figured out how to do it at home. It didn't cost me anything else, which in some cases is an issue with a lot of people that are on disability or don't even get disability. The cost of stuff is ridiculous. And that got brought up by another lady that's in the group at the college. She realized since she couldn't do all the cooking and stuff anymore, how much more it cost her for grocery shopping because she had to buy um, prepared meals all the time, stuff that she didn't have to cook all the time. Too much just is already cooked, so it cost her more because she
Right.
does. So that was more a financial problem, just trying to be able to feed herself.
Right, the cut up fruit is more expensive than buying the fruit and cutting it up. And same with the, salad mixes and stir fry mixes and stuff. If you look at the per pound price, it's a lot more. Like I was going to buy some broccoli the other day, and it was like twice as much as the broccoli.
I
And
just want to throw my 2 cents in here for a second
sure.
about the prepared crisp salads that are an example. Lettuce, another example. It has saved me multiple times because say for example the fatigue is extraordinarily bad. It's really bad, and to prepare a salad, it's more work, we know that, to put everything together and wash and do all of that. But when you're suffering that day, maybe like that day, not every day, but that day I just have too much fatigue. Salad kits have saved my life. I like them. So I think the thing is a balance. You keep going and you have a plan. Okay, today I'm gonna do this, and this is what I can manage today. I think that's important.
Oh, it is,
And,
and
and
that's what I was
yeah,
saying. Go ahead, John.
no, I was say the same thing goes. A lot of people turn to food prep and they spend like an entire Sunday doing food prep for the week. I've seen a lot of people do that.
Yeah,
Just
I
to
I
get their meals
also
for the
do
week.
that. Yeah, I
Yeah,
also do that as well because it just makes sense. I have a big, well, fairly big family, and for us to take a big tray of lasagna out of the freezer, perfect.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
I do the same thing. I make two meals a week or 8 days, 10 days, however long they last, depending on, you make I finally learned how to make smaller pans of lasagna and stuff because I don't like eating the same thing every other night for like a week, 2 weeks. Anyway, I did that before my stroke, and I've continued it because it gets it done. You don't have to stop every day to make dinner. Mindy, you're absolutely right. And that's why I was saying everybody's different in terms of adapting or in terms of fatigue. Um, and uh, so you have to do what works for you. Unfortunately, there are a number of, that's John had mentioned, touched on, and I'm going to go into a little bit more about people on disability have if you have to buy all kinds of adaptive can openers and things or pre-shredded pre-made salads um, or cut up fruit or whatever it can be difficult. I had one stroke survivor I worked with who her disability was $620 a month. $620 a month, and she managed to live on it. So, but you know, when I took her shopping probably 100 times over about a 3-year period, at least once, twice a month, probably, I don't know, 50 or 100 times. And it was difficult for her to, you know, to, she didn't have any other source of income. So she had to make it work, and shopping was difficult. There was no extra money except for cigarettes, but that we shouldn't go there. That always, well, she wouldn't quit smoking. It caused her stroke, and she was in the hospital 4 months, and she went back to smoking, which was a big mistake because then she became addicted again. I the physical therapist I worked under was volunteering to help her, and he told her if she wouldn't quit smoking, that he would cut her loose, and she didn't or wouldn't or couldn't, and he cut her loose. And he told me I should cut her loose, and I said, I can't do that to her right now. I might do it to her in a couple months, but you just walked out on her. I can't walk out on her.
I think that's a whole other, we or you or we, us can discuss the addictions and our bad habits too. Maybe that could be another session, Ralph, where you'd focus, unless it gets people mad. I don't know, but I think that the way we treat ourselves is definitely a topic of conversation that we need to have to move forward. I think that if I, for example, eat bacon every single day or something, that is bad for me, or smoke, yeah, is it preventing us from moving forward with the way we do things? I really feel that for me, the process is so slow. I feel I should be farther ahead than I am. And how come I can't get my body to work over time? And then if somebody else says, "Oh, Mindy, you're still young yet," meaning young in the stroke yet, less than 3 years. So that doesn't mean you're gonna take it as far as you go. You still keep going.
Well,
Yeah, instead of plateau, I mean, I hate the word plateau, but you hit a spot and then you have to just refocus what you're doing, your exercises of your day, and all of a sudden things click. And I don't know how it does it, but sometimes it's just there. Like,
there's a good term for it. It's called an epiphany.
you're right. Yeah, see, I've been working this arm, at Plant Fitness for a year doing the same exercise on the extension. And a couple weeks ago, I always made sure the bicep wasn't working, just the tricep was. All of a sudden, the tricep started kicking in from the spine all the way through my hand. It's like, wow, it finally got the idea what to do and started pushing through it really easily. And now I just slowly increase the weight each week. But it took that long for it to finally make that last connection to the spine. Up through the shoulder and the arm, it was working fine, but there was still no oomph to really push that weight out there. And all of a sudden, you just feel it push from the spine all the way forward.
I think that matters so much. That message, just that message itself is so hopeful for the rest of us, that are working towards making our body work better. With an example for me is to do the vacuuming. So so I used to just push the vacuum back and forth and try not to trip over the cord. But now, now I am able to put the cord in my other hand and not have the hand tight like this, but to have it loose. So it's just loose. So I'm able to move my shoulder back and forth, to move the cord back and forth. So I'm able to do the tasks that I did not do before. So it's
Right.
those kinds of things that, to me anyways, is moving forward and saying, yeah, it's not going around like this, but it's
Well, it's
different
wonderful.
than it was yesterday.
Yeah, it sounds great. I mean, to be able to do that, and I don't know if a lot of times when I try to think about my hand doing something, my hand tightens up. When I don't think about my hand doing something and my hand just does it, it stays relaxed. So I don't know, it's the memories kicking in there. Or else ready to say something.
Oh, no.
Yeah. It's just if I try to tell it to do something, which I'm probably telling my hand or my arm to work incorrectly, but then when I don't think about it, my brain's telling my hand and arm how to work correctly because our muscles are skeletal are so complex anyway.
Couple things here. We were talking about, adaptive stuff, and Mindy brought up like, trying to do things. And a lot of times when you adapt stuff, you end up back with functional therapy. You end up like, trying to use your other hand to figure out a way to do it rather than buying the can opener or whatever. And vacuuming is functional therapy. I did the same thing. I'm right dominant, left affected. So the first thing I tried to do was exactly what you did, Mindy. I couldn't do anything much with my hand, and I got to where I could move the cord out of the way, so I wasn't always I was worried about tripping over it. And also, you got to keep it out of the way because you don't want to run the vacuum cleaner over it. So that was the first thing. And then as I got better and better, I moved towards vacuuming with my affected hand. That's takes a while, but it takes longer. It takes a while to get there and takes longer to vacuum. And when I got frustrated, what I'd do is I'd do half the house with my left hand. And if I got frustrated, I'd just switch back. No point in being totally frustrated. But I'll tell you what, that little move you do where you like go forward and backwards, like where you're bumping up against the couch or a dresser or something, and you go forward and move it over just a little bit and to move it down. That's really tricky with your affected hand, but I did it anyway. I mean, the more you try and do it, the better. Let's see, what else did John bring up? Plateauing. He said something real important that I want to say again, and that is the way to get around a plateau is to mix it up. If you feel like you're stuck, you should be looking into something looking into seeing what you could do that would be new, that would challenge your brain. Your brain gets used to doing anything you do over and over again, and it tends to respond to being challenged, which is why you want to try and challenge it. That's interesting, John. There's one more thing, and I'll shut up for a sec. Because you were talking about imagining it, that's mental imagery, but there's something called cognitive overlay, according to Brian Harris, a neurologic music therapist. He ought to know. He's also a fellow. He's got advanced degrees in neurology, but not a neurologist. In neuroscience, how about that? And I called it overthinking, and he called it cognitive overlay. So that's what's, if you think too hard about it, as opposed to if you move into like overthinking it or cognitive overlay, I found you work against it. I tested their In Tandem product, which is a walking product that plays music, and I found the music distracted me and provided a beat and a metronome, and I tended to overthink less. That's how we got into that discussion. And then there's always the famous quote from my therapist in the rehab hospital on day one. We were talking about the whole thing, and I was talking about how unnatural it was to try and move now. Used to just be able to move, and everything seemed really unnatural and took a lot of thought and everything. And she said, Ralph, we're trying to learn how to, what did she say? Now I'm going to blow this because we're trying to learn how to forget how to walk. Meaning, you're trying to get back to the way, before a stroke, you didn't think about it. Whenever I say this, I get this image. I've got a little like restaurant and bar with a deck over the intercoastal waterway near my house. And one day after my stroke, couple of years after, there was these two waitresses, and they were coming down with the steps with these little round cocktail trays, which are hard enough to balance, and they got them balanced up on their fingertips with about like 6, 7, 8 drinks on each one. Two waitresses. They're talking to each other. They're not paying attention to the drinks. They walk down like a flight of 8 steps. They don't even think about it. They don't look at their feet. They keep talking to each other. They're not even looking where they're going, carrying trays full of drinks. And I thought to myself, boy, you don't know how lucky you are.
That's true. I mean, you see those waitresses carrying big, huge trays of stuff. You see the ones like from Germany carrying all those mugs of beer. It's like how they do all that stuff and keep it balanced. I have no idea. And I
Well,
even think about it.
Plus, if I'm going down a flight of steps, I have to really resist the temptation to look down at my feet. Even though I don't need the side railing, I have to resist the temptation to touch the railing if there is one. If there isn't one, even though I don't need it, my brain kind of half freaks out. Used to like totally freak out. I got over some of that, but guess how? Walking up and down my back deck steps. It's funny because when I showed you that video one time, John, you could see you could see some spasticity or coming back in my shoulder. It's really slight, just comes up just a little bit. You managed to see it. What I was doing was walking up and down the steps with no railing, carrying things in both hands, because that'll really, not having your hands free tended to weird my brain out. I was always wanting to have something in case something happened to grab on. And the only way I got over that, and I'm not completely over it, because if I don't practice it or do it, fairly regularly, it slip back. Is I grabbed two things and walked up and down the steps 100 times at a time, 50 times at a time sometimes. Also practiced where there was a railing going up the step. When I wanted to go up steps and down steps without touching anything, I practiced where there were railings on both sides, but I didn't touch them. I would walk up and walk down and knowing that they were there, but trying, not to touch them unless I needed to. Of course, occasionally I'd lose my balance or something, or my brain would just tell me to do it. So I would do it. So, John, we get back a little bit to exercise. Once you realized that you needed to do more than what you were getting in physical therapy, and you and I both have the idea that the therapists are like music teachers. That's where you learn. You practice at home. How much did you do at home, and what kinds of things did you do? I assume you started with like the sheets and the things that they gave you for homework. Both you and I are probably I'm a big believer in getting homework. I'm sure you probably are too.
I've got several binders of homework.
Several what of
Yeah.
homework?
Several binders full of homework. They've given me sheets from the actual therapist, or I get from the school. Hey, we looked this up and this is here, and so I keep it all together in one binder. But yeah, it's they give me stuff to work on. Then I would think of different things to work on. I could use my hands as much as I can to weight bear everywhere. Just sit there and weight bear, and then of course they give you E-stem, so I had markings on my arm and my leg where the E-stem pads are at. And so I'd work on stuff like that at home too, and then I'd go up and down the stairs at home and try to figure out why I'm not stable on the stairs, and try to break it all down, and so I could work on different areas of my legs to make them work better. And then the one thing that kicked me over the hump on a lot of things was to increase the intensity, which a lot of people don't like to do. I mean, when I started that high intensity gait training program for 30 days, it just pushed you over the top on how much you can accomplish when they add 40 or 50 pounds till you're walking around everywhere. And your legs are still maintaining it after 30 days. And you have this more stability because you've pushed yourself to stabilize yourself. You push through the small parts of everything, the smaller muscle groups are kicking in. You're forcing, I think I was talking about my arm, I was talking about the extension. When it finally kicked in, the farthest back on my spine was when I increased it by 5 pounds one week, and it forced me to push harder. So I was pushing deeper from the shoulder. I think that's what finally kicked into the spine. So increasing the intensity and pushing yourself outside of where you're comfortable with. I mean, you can put, when you're vacuuming, you put leg weights on, use vacuuming so you're walking around stable wise. Stuff like that. Just add little things to increase the intensity, I think, is really what pushed me over the top in a lot of things I do.
And did you use a weight vest for some of that? I know you do a stair climb with a weight vest.
Yes, they have me on 60 pounds. But then he stuck me on a treadmill and said, "Hey, I'm going to ramp this up a little bit." And I go, "Okay." So he ramps it up. He goes, "Oh, I'm going to kick this up a little farther." I went, "What? You're going to what?" I'm barely keeping up now, but he kept pushing me. Just in that they do the measurements by the metric system, by the linear method, not the speed like we do with the RPMs.
You know, the angle.
Well, even he'd increase the angle, and then the treadmills they were using, you could actually walk backwards on them. They could stop the treadmill, turn around, walk it backwards, or you actually walk backwards up the incline. But you never had to switch where you're at. They were like tracks, like tank tracks.
So it would reverse and the belt would go the other way. So you didn't have to go, because like
you're in a harness. Yeah, you're in a harness and they had you strapped down. So they just would stop the machine and put the belt backwards, or if the incline was behind you, then you do the 14 degrees behind you and you're actually climbing up the hill backwards on the treadmill. And they didn't want you touching the rail.
Yeah, well, I tried to touch the rails and turn around backward and walk backwards. Mine only goes one way. So in order to do that, they'd have to be able to raise either end of the treadmill.
Well, they just raised one end, but they would have you with the tread going either forwards or backwards. You could be walking backwards, and they turn around and kick start increasing the incline on it while you're walking backwards.
Right.
Or they loosen the belt up and you have to walk sideways. Scissor step it.
Did they have you strapped into anything?
Yeah, I had harness on top of my shoulders and through my crotch and so I couldn't fall. And then said, go ahead and turn sideways and start scissor stepping. They'll say, now switch your feet. You were walking with the right foot in front, walk now with the left foot in front. And then they tell you to keep alternating. Well, that's a lot of thinking going on while you're trying just to walk.
Right.
At a higher speed and say, "Oh yeah, well, okay, we'll slow it down just a little bit." Really? I just look at him like, "You're gonna do this to me again?" And he just pushed the button a little higher every time.
Well, but it challenged you.
Yeah, they took me up to 10 kilometers an hour on the treadmill, which I forget what I remember that works into. It was up to about 5. I think it's at a 6 on a treadmill, 6 miles per hour, somewhere in there. And I was like, wow.
Oh, well, you're pretty much running at that speed, almost.
That's what I felt like. But the leg wasn't fast enough, so it's hitting hard, which with those tracks versus the belt, the tracks don't slow down. With the belt, you start hitting them hard, the belt starts to grab a little bit and slow down. But it was intense. I think that's what really got me going. And then you go, okay, how do you do this at home? Well, your treadmill at home will not handle that much weight on it. If you put 60 pounds on it, try to go that fast. And 2, you don't have a belt system to safety wise. If you did fall, you're gonna go flying off the end of the wall. And that's just another funny video if you videotape it. A friend of mine out west here, he actually went and bought a boat hoist, and strapped it in his garage up to the ceiling, and then put a tree what you use for a tree stand for deer hunting, and strapped into that, and he'd sit there and crank it to where he wanted to, and it would lock down. Then he could get on the treadmill and walk as fast as he wanted to and not worry about falling off and just swing away.
Yeah, I started with actually funny you mentioned like where for deer hunting, because I got like the cheapest way I could find a pulley system where I could raise and lower it was a deer hoist for cleaning deer.
Here, yeah.
But now I'm working on a thing. I don't need it for me, but I'm going to offer it to local folks. I'm working on a eye bolt in the ceiling. I got my treadmill where in a place where it's out of the way, and I got an eye bolt over it. I just need to get the OSHA vest and so that you can't fall. Because when I was doing mine, I didn't have any of that. So I try when I didn't like walking backwards and turning around and holding the bars behind me. I just didn't do it. And I went back outside. I mean, treadmills are great, and I use they're a really good way to get started, and they're a really good way, like if it's too hot or too cold, too hot in the summer, too cold in the winter to walk outside. They're good, but I always preferred to walk on the real surfaces because in life we want to go to the grocery store and drive a car and walk on the beach and stuff, not walk on a treadmill. So I only ever use the treadmill to accomplish something or because it was too hot or too cold, but that was just me.
Well, if you're doing like scissor stepping or walking backwards, you can at least see where your speed's at, and you can adjust where you're at to make sure to go a little easier and test yourself a little more. But then, they had the harness on, but they also had like 60-pound weight vest on underneath that while I'm on the treadmill trying to do this stuff. And they throw stuff on the treadmill belt, foam blocks, rollers, everything you got to learn to step over, anticipate as they're coming at you.
Yeah, I've seen, one thing I've not explored. Well, I've shot video of CrossFit for twice for a couple of gyms where I got hired as the videographer. But some people use CrossFit in stroke recovery, and there's a number of things in CrossFit that are real challenging, like the flipping over the 500-pound tire, throwing the big heavy medicine ball up against the wall and back, dragging a sled. Um, that would probably be one of the best because a lot of times, well, I've worked with a therapist, didn't do it to me, but I've seen it. Well, we did it to my friend Henry when we were teaching him how to walk again, where you hook up around their waist a couple of real strong TheraBands, and you have them walk against the TheraBands, and you're stretching them out. So that's another way that they sometimes accomplish this. That would make for an interesting subject. Maybe I could find some kind of a couple people who had done CrossFit in their stroke recovery, and then find some kind of a CrossFit expert, whether they were a stroke survivor or not, and have a little discussion about weight vests and big tires, and really challenging yourself. Do you feel
Well,
like
what's her face in Canada? I can't remember what her name is. She just had her hair was always dyed red. Now she's finally she's accepted the gray. It's taken like a year for the red to run out of her hair. She wrote the book, Pick Up a Peg. I can't remember her name is offhand. Oh, Angie, I can't remember her last name.
and she
She
did
did. She was a nurse and suffered the stroke, and then she got into bodybuilding and did competitions and stuff after her stroke.
Yeah,
That's impressive.
seen a couple people do that. I actually worked with a physical therapist one time. I was shocked that she was having me help get this guy who could hardly move up on the parallel bars, and she could just about do it herself. And I found out she was a South Carolina champion weightlifter.
Yeah, Angie Collins Burke. Her last name's Burke.
Oh, okay. I've seen her
Yeah.
around.
She's done a lot of CrossFit and a lot of the flipping. She's always flipping tires. They were out with someone walking some trails one day, and there was a tractor tire laying outside the road. So she started flipping the tire. I said, "Really? You start flipping the tire?"
That's immensely impressive.
Yeah, she's done a lot of impressive things with the weight, and she goes to the gym on a regular basis. and she's still posting workouts.
Yeah. Sometimes I see those folks still going at it. I think I should be going at it, but then, I guess I got to where I live a semi-normal life, and I maybe don't do as much therapy as I should. I don't know, I don't do as much as you do, John.
I only do it twice a week,
Twice a week?
except, I mean, you consider my work every day as a workout, but yeah.
Right. Yeah, well, I do yard work and a lot of that stuff, and I figure that, but if I start to feel anything going on with my body, I'll go back and do heel raises or marching or move my arm or whatever's. I do like a maintenance dose, and I try and, keep regression from going away. I mean, from not regressing.
Right, just keep it stable.
It's interesting because I've seen a lot of posts lately about, and I have several friends who feel like they've regressed after a number of years, and that's a real interesting subject. I don't know, I don't understand it at all. I'd love to find an expert and talk about it, but I don't know where to find an expert. It's hard enough to find people who know, scientists and therapists and stuff who know a lot about stroke, let alone something like regression. Maybe you should contact like the people at University of Alabama, Birmingham. They've got quite a good program down there, and see what if they've been, or my friends at the Medical University of South Carolina. And so I'm going to write that down too.
Yeah, because that's one thing I mean, when I first had the stroke, they had me in the office with the psychologist just to make sure my frame of mind was in the right, my mind was in the right frame of mind. It wasn't going the opposite direction, or depression setting in and stuff like that. So I argued with them and had 2 sessions and got out of his thing and went back on the floor to do more exercises.
I definitely feel that it is important to have conversations about regression, because that can be seen as being so comfortable with each day that you go into the day and and you stop doing your exercises or different things, and you get comfortable with your, say, your hand not working. You just go about your day with your good hand, and that's it, and then you sit down. So nothing was done for therapy for your hand that day. So I believe whether it's regression or just being very comfortable with not exercising, and how that is, whether it's part of your mind or whatever. But I believe that each person, yes, is different, and sometimes we get so comfortable with the way that our body is because of the time that has gone by, that we forget to push ourselves to be a little bit better in different ways.
Well, yeah,
I
I
also
agree.
think I also think you're determined to get better. That's why you're gonna push yourself, and rather than just laying around and say, "Oh well, I have tomorrow to do something." But in reality, tomorrow is another day, and then you have different priorities. So more so, you will not do something for your hand if you're focusing on your hand. And so your determination is really important to me.
right. And there's kind of two kinds of regression, if you will. And Mindy's talking about one where you get used to it, or you don't push yourself as much. But there are actually people out there that have reported, like my friend Chris Moore and Ray Tinsley, both in the UK, have reported the same sort of thing, where they used to be able to do something. They maintain their exercise program, and they feel like they don't do things, or they either can't do things like that they used to, or they don't do them as well. And if you start thinking logic doesn't make a lot of sense logically. It seems like you continue to progress as opposed to regress, but there's got to be something to the whole thing. Anyway, if I can ever find an expert, we'll have a talk on it. So,
Hey, Ralph,
yeah,
there's also that part, if you don't use it, you lose it. Even though you've gained it back, if you don't use it, continue to involve it, then you start to lose it. And it can disappear in a matter of a week.
right. Well, I mean, I can't monitor everybody that, what they're doing when they post, but, I know Chris Moore, um, continues to do therapy. So it seems like that this is actually possible without forgetting to use it. Yeah, because use it to lose it or use it to improve it.
Yeah, I remember those two saying, remember those. But I know I've been through the roller coaster rides like Mindy's talking about. There's been times where I've been in ruts for weeks. Michelle and I talk back and forth. It's like, I can't break out of this rut. I'm trying to find a way out of this rut. So I'm just in a lull for weeks and nothing changes. And all of a sudden one day it just all clicks and I'm right back up out of it again. I've got a new outlook on life and things just start firing away again. But I call it the roller coaster ride. Depending on what day of the week it is and what time of year it is, just a roller coaster ride.
Well, Mindy's absolutely right. I was going to say earlier, we can't even have this conversation we're having now unless you get over some level of acceptance about what's happened to you. But that's kind of a given because, if you haven't accepted what's happened to you and decided to play the cards you dealt with, you tend to not do what you need to do. If
What it is it all comes down to our brain, how we think about things, how we feel about things, our level of resilience. Not everyone is very resilient. Resilience is a trait that you have. I mean, it could be zapped. The way I think of it in the very layman term is sometimes your motivation in the brain was zapped out of you. And I say that because I know that my friend had a stroke 4 months after I did, and he could walk. He could get up and walk down the hallway. I could not do that, but he could get up and walk down the hallway in rehab, and he wouldn't. He wouldn't get up. He wouldn't get up and exercise or go or anything. He would just shrug his shoulders and say, "Nah, I'm okay." Well, why? What? Get out of the diaper and go to the bathroom yourself. Nah, that's okay. Like what happened? And the brain is very, very complex for all of us. It really is. I have a level of respect for one another in terms of how we think about things, the level of resilience that we have. It's really astounding and very complex. I take my hat off to you, Ralph, in finding these experts to help share information with us. It is valuable.
well,
Very
thanks.
As I slobber.
Well,
But there's Ralph gets the experts out there, but there's so much within these groups that motivates so many people too. I mean, just everyday stuff you see. You have the experts that went to the school and got their training, but just so much you hear and see from different members in the groups, all through the groups, it just blows your mind away that these experts got to be going, where's this coming from? How are they doing this? How are they able to complete this task? It shouldn't be possible, but yet people are doing it. So like you said, our own brains, the human spirit is out there. It's hard to you can't put a meter on the human spirit.
well, I think the experts are important and knowledge is power, but I don't think you get better just listening to experts. I think it's part of a pronged approach. And I think one of the groups are really valuable. As a video guy, I've always encouraged people to post videos. I think that either whether they have video or not, the posts where people say, you know, I finally made it up the steps without touching the railing. It's been 2 years. And Mindy said something to you, John, earlier about, you know, the fact you had to break through with your arm after all this time. Is inspiring and encouraging. And I think videos are, you know, well, they're very visual. So you see somebody doing
Right.
something, and even if you can't do it yet, you go, well, maybe there's hope for me. Yeah. Let's see what else. Mindy said something about, I found that stubborn, you know, I didn't know your son had a stroke. I'm sorry about that for him.
Not my son, a friend.
Oh, a friend had a stroke.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, sorry, I misheard. Um, sorry, your friend had a stroke. Stubborn people tend to do better. They don't give up. And it's interesting because, you know, one thing we were just talking about, you have to get to some level of acceptance to where you start trying to get better. Because if you sit around having a pity party, you're definitely not going to get better. So, but then you can't have too much acceptance about, oh, well, this is just the way it's going to be. The people who go, well, no way, I'm not going to give up. I'm going to walk down the damn hall whether they think I can or not. Those are the people that, you know, tend to get better. So it's kind of, it's, you know, different. You have to come to some level of acceptance to get started. And then, yeah, you have to like try and resist just accepting your circumstance and saying, oh, well, that's good enough. Depending on how far you want to get. Some people, you know, so there are people out there and it's their absolute perfect right, say, nope, I've had enough. I'm living okay. I mentioned that earlier. I'm kind of like, I recognize that I have to keep doing things in order to keep the gains I got, but I'm not looking to do 10 hours of therapy a day like I used to do for a year after my stroke. Don't have time for one, don't have the inclination for the other. And plus, you know, while neuroplasticity lasts a lifetime, I can do most everything. The things that I'm not doing would really take a lot of work to accomplish, and like running. I don't run very well for very far. I can run for about 100 feet, but it looks really goofy. Yeah, I can't get my arms. I do opposition okay. If I get into a new circumstance, and even 16 years out, I noticed the other day when I was doing Jill Stein's exercise class, since I hosted and I don't host, I don't do anything. I do all the mechanics behind the scenes. I do the posting, the graphics, the recording, and all that kind of stuff. So I have to be there for all that. And I figure, hey, perfect. So, you know, I do the class. I noticed a couple of times the last couple of weeks, I'll do the opposition fine, and all of a sudden I go, wait a minute, you're moving the same side together instead of, you know, the opposite side. So that really gets me with running, because it's really hard to turn my legs over that fast. And I'm we're back to cognitive overlay or overthinking. Or not having enough brain. I call it running out of brain. I start running and I don't have enough brain to, like you were talking about earlier, John, you get tilt the treadmill up, put you on backwards and increase the speed, put a weight belt on, and you're like going, wow, that's too much to think about. So that's me running. I'm like trying to get my legs to turn over, and opposition just goes out the window because I don't have enough brain for it. So, and it's important, especially in more so in running than walking. But anybody who doesn't know, opposition is when you move your one leg and your opposite arm. It's the way babies crawl. And there's a reason they crawl, because that's the way we walk. They crawl like that to learn opposition, because when they grab the coffee table and stand up and decide to head across the room, you know, that's how we walk. I guess it's a balance thing. That's how you use a cane too. assuming you do it.
Crutches, all the same thing. Yeah. Even, but that I had the therapist tell me to try to walk, moving my arm, and my leg at the same time. Not what you're talking about, Ralph, but right leg, right arm, left leg, left arm. Try to train your brain to do it just the opposite. Then going back to crossways would actually be easier, was her understanding.
Really?
Yeah. So you're thinking, you use your brain to do something totally different than what your body's doing.
So they had you move the same side.
Right. Yeah. And then when you're out walking, think about walking that way. But then later on, think about walking with your left arm matching your right leg and your right arm matching your left leg.
I'd not heard that, and I never tried that.
But
That's interesting, in terms of the way we are required to hardwire our brain at times. The example that I will use is that using your left leg to press the gas on the car is now on the left side, and the brake is on the right side. So it's opposite. Our brains are hardwired, so we know where the gas and the brake is. And now all of a sudden it's flipped over, and now we have to practice, practice, practice. So we know, oh, I got to step on the brake. I got to step on the brake and not the gas. That's where I am now in terms of my journey to get back to driving. I passed all whatever I was supposed to pass. Yeah, my noggin is still there. I'm still up there. And other things are good. Other things are good, but they have to put the brake or the gas on the other side where normally the brake would be. So I have to remember. So it's hard work, whatever it is, whatever the task, if you're running or whatever, we have to rewire our brain a lot of the times to accommodate how we're going to accomplish different things to do better.
Have you gotten your car adapted yet?
I do not, but I've been in the car that was adapted with the test that I had to have at the hospital. So I did all that. I'm waiting for a letter now to come to say these are the modifications that you are required to do for your car. So I'm waiting for those now. And then the car will be modified. I'll take it in for that.
Well, and of course, you'd be smart to go to a big empty parking lot and practice before you go out.
Oh, I have 1,200 acres of a big empty parking lot. That's all I got around here.
You live
a
on
bunch of
1,200
bunch of
acres?
scared wild animals.
Yeah. I have the fields and everything to drive down and practice on. I was practice on parallel parking with two round bales and a railing in between. So that's what I had for parallel parking. So that
Cool.
was set up. So yeah, it was cool. Yeah. So I could do it, but sometimes on the first try, I mess up and go, oh darn, I hit the boulevard, and then I'll have to start again. But it's practice, practice, practice.
Yeah. Now you said rewiring your brain to do it just the opposite direction with your feet and everything.
Well, big round hay bales are good. You know, if you're going to run into something with your car, that would be preferable than another car because they're not going to do a lot of damage. You might get some hay caught in your bumper, but other than that, you know.
Yes,
Not
yes,
so after the airbags.
You live on 1,200 acres, Mindy?
yes.
Wow.
There's no neighbors around here. There's no one that lives close by. Well, within 5 kilometers, there's another home.
Wow. So, and you mentioned before your husband's like a farmer. Do you run cows or something?
Yeah, we have cattle. We have cattle and horses, and it's just more like a hobby farm because he works full time driving fuel truck to deliver fuel in the area. So he comes home and then he does his farm work. So
Wow.
we live in the country and we live a country life. So when you're talking about hanging up the deer and so forth, I know exactly what you mean because we have two of them and we're doing that right now. We're a bit of an outfitter organization here. The guys are out hunting now. Not my guys, but other guys that come here every year for hunting. So they're out now. And they'll be out for a few days. And they're exhausting because I have to
Unbelievable.
Mm,
Well, your husband's a busy guy because the farm is a full-time job and 1,200 acres is a lot of, if you don't mow the fields and make the hay and I mean, there's certain things that are time sensitive. You can't let stuff grow up. If you let it grow up, it becomes a lot harder to deal with.
now that's
I had some,
life on the farm.
go ahead.
No, I just said that's life on the farm. There's
Oh, yeah.
always
Yeah.
things to do. And right now he was successful. And the thing about uh what you do and the way you interact and with your day, I am a hunter also. I can shoot and I can get a deer and I did get last year. So the guys are all out there. So I'm hoping that I don't have to go and get one myself. I hope that they could get. So yeah, it's a little different, but that's the life that we lead here.
Well,
Buying a steak is
I'm,
lots of
I'm,
money in the store.
right.
I'm jealous of the life you have up there. I'll say it that way. A lot of people are envious of that right now.
Well, yeah. And the steak you buy in the store has got chemicals in it, and the deer don't. They're out in the woods,
Yeah, there's no recall on wild deer.
no, they're not recalling deer for E. coli. You
They
have,
say to watch some of the fish from time to time. Don't eat the fish because they got stuff in the water. But yeah, there's no recall on deer, wild animals anywhere.
yeah, I've lived out in the country, and I was at a barbecue one time, and they had gotten some tofu pups or something because they knew we were vegetarian. And they were actually not too bad. Um, I was talking to a real country couple, and about being a vegetarian, and they said, "Well, we're vegetarians in the summer because they had a huge garden, really productive garden. They didn't eat much meat in the summer because they had so much vegetables." And then I said something about, well, we kept talking, and I said something about supermarket or something. He looked at me like, "We don't buy meat at the supermarket." And I said, "What do you do?" He said, "Well, I get a couple of deer and half a dozen turkeys during the year, and that's what we eat." We've gotten this is a whole nother subject, but we've gotten away from living close to the land. Most of us have. You haven't. Uh, so
And
Yeah.
and what you do in the day, what functional things that one could do in the day, whether I live in the city or whether I live in the country, is what we do with our bodies to try to get better, walk around the decks outside, the grass or whatever it is to
Grounding.
help ourselves. Yes, yes. It's the same. I see it as the same. So if I was not motivated, I won't go outside. I won't go shooting a deer. I won't do nothing. Um, it depends on the person, not where you live or anything like that. I know that, but it's so important to um at least share. And I think that that's why these sessions are are so good is because we share our experiences. This is what I do. This is what happened to me. And this is where I want to go, but I'm working at it.
Oh, yeah. And whether you live in the city or the country, your place still needs vacuuming, you know, whether you walk around 1,200 acres or you walk around Central Park or you walk around your block or walk in your suburban neighborhood, it doesn't matter. It's a matter of
Just doing
keeping that attitude and trying to keep going. And there are days when we all, I mean, come on, we all know we all have days where we're not as highly motivated as others, or you just don't feel like something, or something's not working, you just feel like I can't do that. Well, I mean, that's okay. You know, there's always tomorrow. The thing to do is to not get into a rut with that kind of thinking or action, you know, to bounce back when you can. Um, So John, why don't we see if we can talk about some kinds of exercises you can do at home. Of course,
okay.
functional therapy, all you have to do is think about any room, you know, like
Right.
you go in the bathroom, you think, well, you could brush your teeth, you can comb your hair with your affected hand, you know, try and do all kinds of things. In the kitchen, you got cooking, cleaning, and washing dishes, and loading, unloading the dishwasher if you use one, all kinds of things. But there are also a lot of other yard work. I just looked outside and went, yeah, you mow the lawn, you blow and pick up the leaves, wheelbarrow, compost to the garden. I'm looking at the deck I tore up. That's functional therapy for sure.
And I'm always leery to all those using those power tools. Make sure I get my 5 fingers back.
I showed John. I'll show you guys. I don't have them on the computer, so I have to do this. So I thought I had two bad boards on my deck that needed replacing. And we started, and the next thing you know, there were 15 boards and all the floor joists that needed replacing. So that'll be some serious functional therapy. Yeah, when I look out my back door, I can't walk out my back door right now because
Goes,
that's
take
what it looks like. There's the door, there's a threshold right at the bottom of the picture. There's nowhere to step. Oh, and you can't step on those floor joists. See the missing one? My brother-in-law stepped on that and it collapsed under him. He's lucky that two things. It's not very deep, so he didn't fall very deep. He just went down about 18 inches, and also he didn't like lose his balance or whatever, 'cause you get real hurt. He
Yeah.
I have a question. I have a question that you guys talked about many times, and even on this one, somebody said it when you said it, weight bearing. If I want to practice weight bearing with my affected hand, um, is that, do you think that A plus B equals C? If I weight bear with my hand, would that strengthen my hand to do other things?
Yes.
That's a question.
It connects. It sends the impulses back to the brain, so it connects all your nerve endings.
Can you open your right hand with your other hand?
Yes. Yes, I
Get it
can.
open?
Yeah, I can.
So can you get it flat on a table?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so get it flat on a table or the counter in the kitchen. And then you put the other hand down. I want to show my shoulders here. I can't get far enough back from the table to get a wide shot of me.
Glad you're wearing pants, Ralph.
Yeah, I'm wearing pants. They're like sweatpants, and I don't think I wasn't expecting to
You
do this. But
cute, John.
one thing you do is like you can lean into that affected shoulder. And if you have both hands down, you can like lean this way to where you're putting like a lot more weight on it. And you know, while you're at the counter, grab this is a napkin, not a dish towel or whatever, but you know, once you start to do that, start trying to do wax on, wax off in both directions. Try and make circles. They won't be circles in the beginning. I'm not going to demonstrate bad behavior with my affected hand. I'll do it with my unaffected hand. But if you try and do wax on, wax off in the beginning, it'll look like this. It'll look like jerky. You want to get it to where you go. Nice, smooth, circular motion. You do triangles in the beginning. Same with when you do, like one of the things I did for my shoulder, a lot of was circles. I did when I broke my shoulder, and then I did them again when I had my stroke. You just basically take your finger and try and draw a circle with your finger. You go in both directions. I did sets of like 200. I'd go 100 this way and do 100 this way. And I did them about 5-10 times a day. I did 1,000, 2,000 of them a day for months.
Wow.
Anything circular is like the wax on, wax off, or your shoulder movement, or like drawing the best ankle exercise, in my opinion, is drawing the alphabet with your big toe. Because when you do the C's and the D's, or even the E's, where you got to make flags, it's all kinds of different motion. You're using a lot of different muscles. When you do a circle, like the shoulder circles or wax on, wax off, you're using all the muscles, and you're also training them to, like, every time if you do a simple curl, John knows this, when you come up, you're working the bicep and the triceps relaxing. As you go down, the triceps working, keeping your arm from dropping, and the bicep is relaxing. So almost anytime you move, you've got you've got a balance going on between your muscles. One's, if you drew a graph of it, one's going up and the other one's coming down, it looked like a perfect X. Also, I'm going to get out of my knowledge zone here. I do know this, but stroke affects the anti-gravity muscles. So getting that balance back is important. I don't want to talk too much about the anti-gravity muscles. Well, I'm talking about gravity, we're going to talk about some exercises you can do at home. So one of the first things you can do, if you've got an arm and shoulder not moving, is get on the bed and get rid of gravity. You start doing, like, try and do snow angels or whatever. Try moving your arm with it flat on the bed, because you're not having to hold it up. And as you get better at that, you can start trying to raise the arm, even, push it straight up or whatever. There are lots of things you can do in the, yep.
They're doing the circles, they're doing the wave all the way across and all the way back. But then you gotta be able to steady it. You don't want to be doing this everywhere and trying to chase a fly or something. Get somebody able to get the slow motion movement out of there. And you do it the small circles, and you go to the big circles and back to small circles, and just get that shoulder movement. That's where all mine started at. Just being horizontal in bed first thing in the morning before I fired any muscles up.
Right. And slow and controlled is always best, because it takes more concentration, more balance between the muscles. So let's see, if you're in a wheelchair, there's all kinds of things like yoga moves and things like, you can do simple circles in each direction in a wheelchair.
Working your core, yeah.
Those are good for core. You can do forward folds and back up. It always goes all the way back to your attitude and what you want to accomplish, and your level of acceptance, because without any acceptance, it's really hard to move forward. So if I could change one thing in stroke, it would be make everybody get over the whole acceptance thing right away, because while neuroplasticity lasts a lifetime, you've got more closer to your stroke. There's that spontaneous healing period. That's the thing that older doctors will tell you sometime, that, you got 6 months, 12 months, 9 months, 18 months, where most of the healing is going to occur. And while that might be true, it's not like a life sentence or anything, because I've made John just had a breakthrough. You're what, 11 and a half years, John, something like that?
11 years December.
11, okay, I knew it was 11. So coming up on 11. So, 11 years in, he's got a breakthrough on his shoulder. So don't believe it can't happen after that period, but you do have more. If I could if I could change anything, I'd stop strokes so nobody had one. But if people had them, I could change one thing after the fact. It would be to somehow get people to get to that level of acceptance so that they can work on doing exercises at home.
Yeah.
So what else? What else do I do at home? I've got mats, and I can get down on the floor and back up. I don't need a chair or anything to do it, but you can always put a chair or put your mats near a table or something. Or if you have a partner or spouse, they can help you get down and get back up if that's required.
We spot you. Yeah.
Spot you, yeah. I'll tell you what, if you got somebody that's willing to spot you, you can do a whole lot more things safely than if you don't, but not everybody. My ex wouldn't really work with me at all. She was supportive in some ways mentally, but she wasn't going to get involved in anything like spotting or whatever. Let's see. So I've got like exercise mats and a yoga mat, and I put them down, and I'll get down on the floor, and you can do like modified push-ups or real push-ups. You can do bridges. You can do side planks. You can do side planks. You can sit on the balance ball. All those are, you can do clamshells. All those are real good core exercises. What else can you do at home? Well, you can
These are the bridges right there in bed, laying horizontal right away.
right. Well, you can do most of those exercises on a bed too. Let's see, what else can you do?
I mean, most of the exercises I do, I can use TheraBands at home.
Yep.
TheraBands attached to a doorknob, where they're knotted or put in the door, and the door is closed, so you don't come back and smack you. But you can do a lot of arm exercises, rowing exercises against those TheraBands, or pushing down with the TheraBands, or going upward over your shoulder with TheraBands. It's a nice consistent pressure that you can work against, so that like the bicep and the tricep, when you're pulling, you're using one muscle, when you're going back, you're using the other muscle steady. So you're using both sets of muscles to move.
Yeah, anybody doesn't know, I mean, this is well, there are a couple different, this is the TheraBand band stuff, but also bands coming round with handles on the end. One of the things I use a lot is a suction cup grab bar. And you put this on the counter. They're not for showers, unless you're pretty stable. They click the sucker down. It's over, won't stick to this particular surface. And you can set this on a counter, and you can use it to hold on to while you do things like marching, weight bearing. You can do weight bearing on that leg, Mindy, on the even without one of these. Just if you have like a bar level counter, you just go over to it, stand up, grab with your unaffected hand, and try and shift. You can shift your weight. Weight shifting is just simply, well, I sure wasn't prepared to do this. I don't think we can get the table out of the way. Weight shifting is as simple as, you can move back and forth. You can just simply bear weight on your unaffected leg. I got my hand here for stabilizing. I don't necessarily need it, but I can't stay balanced on it very long. And you can start moving, marching, does weight bearing. A lot of things do weight bearing. Weight bearing on both your arm and your shoulder tells your brain that you want to use that body part. It's like sending signals going, hey, we're out here, the leg's out here, this leg's out here, don't forget about me. I want to use it. So I got like, I have interactive counter exercise video. I think I do 9 of them using one of these, and 9 different exercises. The bands are useful. This one's for going around my ankles and walking sideways. There are also the round ones. And John, you mentioned the things that go through a door. I was trying to find a door anchor. I have one somewhere.
Well, even if you just put a knot in it, Ralph, which I hate because it's hard to get a knot back out, and just close it in the door, it stays in there.
Yeah, I've got these door anchors. They cost about $2.
Yeah, I think I've seen those too.
I didn't, yeah, so you got this, you got something bulbous at the end, and you put it through the door, and then you can't pull the door. Where is my door anchor? I thought I took it. I just got my,
Now, if you put it through the door, the side where the hinge is at, and then close the door, it sticks the best. Versus outside by where the door actually opens up. If you just push it through, open the door up and get it through by the hinge side, and then just close the door with the knot on the other side, it's more stable that way.
yep. Yeah, as you mentioned, though, if you tie a knot in TheraBand, it's pretty hard to get it,
Yeah, they're pretty much shot at that point, but you still do a lot of stuff within a loop with like that, because you can also put them around your feet and do the monster walk. You're talking about the weight shifting. You can put them around your ankles, and you can push out at the same time and try to maintain your legs that far apart. Do like a monster. You do like a modified monster walk, where you've got them around your knees also and walk sideways. So you get that pressure on your knees all the time to push out your legs.
If somebody is working on evening out their gait, the monster John Wayne walk is the best. My neurotherapist had me do it for a while. It took me a couple of years until I got time to, I got released and I was taking other people, and I never got to ask her. I finally got to ask her why she prescribed that. And she said that when you take that wider shift, you're forced to bear weight equally on both sides. I've got a video on that. I've never tried it with any kind of bands or anything. I just do it normal out in the driveway. Yeah, she had me actually doing the monster walk while I was, and she had me trying to get rid of that whole cognitive overlay thing, the overthinking, John. She had me doing like naming state capitals. Well, I know all of them. So, after a day or two of that, I got bored with that. So I said, how about if I do math in my head? And she said, oh, yeah, anything, to use more of your brain. What you're trying to do is build up brain. So you don't go like on the treadmill, oh my God, that's too many things to be thinking about, at the same time, like you experienced. So,
Well, they had me do that in last year with a bunch of students. We actually volleying a volleyball back and forth. I was doing underhand volley, but they had squares I had to step to. I had like a square, and I had to crisscross the square. But each step I took, I had to say a letter of the alphabet, and then name an animal with that letter, and then also return the volleyball. So, and they said the more I concentrate on getting the letter and the animal, the more movement my shoulder gained. The movements were smoother, more relaxed, because I wasn't thinking about the arm. I was thinking about more of the alphabet and the letter and the animal than I was trying to move the arm. So back to the body taking over the movement versus you trying to make the movement.
I put all my chip clips back in the kitchen, but simple things, like I should do it in my affected hand. Of course, that's exactly why, of course, if you can always go crosswise if you're getting flipping, that's exactly why a chip clip is better than a clothespin. Because the clothespin will like rotate on you, and chip clips a flatter surface. But they're real good for working on pinching. And you can go to Menards or Home Depot or Lowe's, and you buy yourself a 50-cent bolt with a nut and a washer on it, and you can, here's the thing, if you want to exercise at home or do occupational therapy at home, I'm untwisting the bolt. By the way, you don't want to twist the bolt with your unaffected hand. You're not doing anything that way. You want to twist the nut all the way off. To get that rotational stuff back. And then you can take the washer off. And, you know, it's real easy to take the washer and stick the bolt through it, but that's not what you want to do. If you're trying to build up this hand, never do live demos on Zoom, Ralph. What you want to do is hold the bolt steady and use your affected hand to put the washer back on. Now here's the real challenge, because when you start a bolt, you have to get it even. Of course,
Ta-da!
well, I practiced this a few thousand times, so I'm pretty good at it. I'll tell you what, when you go put this bolt back on, I'll tell you what, you'll drop it and you'll cross thread it many times. And if you don't, you're better than me. All right. But I didn't
The
find
same using they're basically like Nerf balls. So I've looked more at the cat and dog toys because they have more knobs on them and they're a little more flexible. So you can learn to practice your grip to just slightly touch it to pick it up and then be able to let go, but not to just grasp it and then your hand's stuck and you can't get rid of it. So work on the light touch versus the full grip all the time. Because we can get the full grip. I know that. I can put stuff in my hand and grab it and I can't take it back out of my hand until I get my shoulder up and relax the fingers and I can slide it right on my hand. And I've also noticed that more I've done that from the shoulder being up here and working stuff, my shoulder can be down here now and I can take stuff out of my hand. My fingers are relaxed. So it's slowly coming down as the shoulder gets stronger and the hand will be more relaxed in the downward position.
Well, I wanted to use that knapsack the other night to go to a covered dish, and so I dumped all the things out that I'd taken in I taught. I'm going to teach it again in a stroke recovery class for Ollie, Osher Lifelong Learning Institute. So I'd taken a few things for show and tell. Somehow or another, my door anchor didn't make it through. But one thing you got to be careful about with, of course, there's therapy putty. And it comes in different resistances. You got to be careful about doing too much squeezing with your hand in the beginning, because to open your hand, the muscles to close your hand are 9 times, this is my affected hand, by the way, are 9 times stronger than the muscles to open them. And yep, I can do that in both directions. But I worked at it for a long time. One of the things about the squeezy thing, this is an ambient thing I got at a show I did. The thing about the squeezy things versus the putty is they bounce back. So they force your hand back open, which is good. If you're going to do squeezing, you should do something. Another thing you can do is squeeze, believe it or not, like a 3-hole punch for punching holes in paper, the office thing. You got one there, John?
Yeah, I got one.
Do you ever use it in therapy, or is it just in
I've
your?
never tried it in therapy because you always just shove your hand down those punch holes anyway.
Well, pick it up and close it, and it has a spring, so it'll spring back. I'm not trying to make you do it with your affected hand either.
Oh yeah, you are. You made me do this. I know who you are.
Yeah. Well, while you're doing that off camera until you're comfortable maybe doing it on camera. One thing about putty is if you get a heavy enough putty, you bury your fingers in it, your fingers will get stuck in it. And you want to make sure that they're springing back. People buy
Yeah, I
these.
got some yellow putty and it just turned the
Yeah, it's pretty strong spring on there too.
Well,
You're
some
right.
of them are pretty strong. They're hard to close with your affected hand.
I'll
Now
remember that one. I'll work on that.
Now we've combined home exercises with therapies all around you because You can use simple things like, I mean, because that's the therapy exercise. You get a 3-hole punch and you work it 50 or 100 times. It's the same thing as a squeezy ball or putty or any other therapy tool.
I should have a 2-hole punch. Yeah, I got 2-hole punch, but that's like this wide. It ain't gonna happen with one hand.
Right. All right. Well, so there are a lot of things you can do at home. Counter exercises. I mean, first you got functional therapy, using your affected hand,
Anything, almost anything you do all day long is gonna be functional therapy.
everything, right. But then if you want to, you can also do exercises. You can walk in your driveway, you walk in your backyard, you can do marching, butt kickers, vertical leg extension, weight bearing, squats and stuff at the counter. You can get down on the floor and do core exercises. If you can't, you can do simple core exercises in a wheelchair. I've got videos on almost all the stuff on my YouTube channel, so anybody out there in YouTube land who doesn't know that, it's at Stroke Buddies on YouTube, and go to playlists and you'll find all kinds of
You've got hundreds of videos on there.
yeah, I actually do. I have over 400. It's a number of them are talk and yoga and breath classes and stuff, but there's I don't know, I've never counted them. Well over 100 exercise videos. Somebody wants to do counter exercises should look up that interactive counter exercises, because I demonstrate 9 of them, and then I do sets of 40 of each of the 9 of them. I also show people how to slow it down. I do them at normal speed because I didn't want to like hold back somebody who could do them as well as I can do them. And YouTube will let you play the video at 75%, 50%, or 25%. So you can slow it down a little bit, halfway, or you hear that. I don't talk during them. I count them out. So you hear me go 1, 2. Anyway, but it's more important to find a speed that you can do them at. The other thing that's in that thing is there are 9 exercises, and I put like clickable links to each one. So if you want to do I do 40 sets of marching. And if you want to do 200 sets of marching, you just keep hitting reload. And it's got the time code, and it'll just play it again and again and again. If you don't like butt kickers, you can just butt kickers when you stand on one leg and try and kick your butt with your heel.
Good.
They're good because they're explosive. Before you start doing, you ever try and do frog leaps, John? Like getting down on the ground and leaping like a frog?
They've tried it with the students. It didn't work out too well. Yeah, we've tried it.
Well, explosive things are difficult. Butt kickers are one of them. Anyway, you can do you can pick the ones you want, do them over and over again, or you can, I have most people just watch the 10 minutes or whatever it takes me to go through this set of 9, and they can do the whole thing again. The cool thing about it is once you set the speed on YouTube, if like you want to do like butt kickers over and over again, you just keep hitting reload and it plays it at the same speed. So if you're at 50% or whatever, you don't have to set the speed every time. So that's pretty easy. You can put your computer on the counter and just hit reload and it'll keep going. I've had a number of people tell me they do it every day. I've had several people ask me to do other ones. Shoulder, for one, was one. Yeah, in my spare time. Well, I will get to it eventually.
Your spare time, you got some of that?
Yeah, no, I don't have much of that. That's one thing about finding all these,
You're a very active man.
finding all these experts and stuff. It doesn't just happen. I'm not looking to get thanked or slapped on the back or anything. It's more work than most people realize.
One of my favorite expressions is the more you do, the more you can do. And this applies in all angles of that.
Yeah, as long as you can keep your motivation.
Yeah.
Because that, it holds true for, even what I do. I try not to get discouraged because when I get discouraged, then I don't have as much motivation. And when I don't have as much motivation, I don't do as much.
Right.
And things aren't as efficient. You ever notice that? Like when you're
Yep.
off, you're off in every way. Everything takes longer. It's like, well, I'm a big believer that things either spiral up or spiral down. They don't stay static. So you're best off to try and keep them spiraling up as many days as you can and keep them from not spiraling down. And if they do, keep them from not continuing to spiral down. Because the more they do, the bigger hole you got to dig yourself out of.
Hey, I just want to say goodbye, guys. I have to go now, but thank you very much for the
No problem.
information. I enjoyed it today.
Good.
Thank you.
Well, and I was just trying to wrap it up because it's
Yeah.
time. We've been at it long enough. It's time to go. And also, I got my brother-in-law's coming over. I get to do functional therapy all afternoon on my deck.
Oh,
Let's see.
I get to build one next spring, so I'm good there too.
We'll be tearing out more. We'll be measuring. We'll go to Home Depot. We'll try and pick the good boards out of the back. Like that's what we were doing yesterday. Yeah, they're 5 feet up, and the only good ones are in the back. And
Of course.
oh yeah, there's some serious functional therapy at the big box store. Load them in the truck, bring them back, unload them, and carry them to the job. Cut them, put them in. There's plenty of functional therapy there. So therapy's all around you. And if you want to get better, John and I both recommend setting up a home exercise program. I would recommend, I'm a bit of a maniac. I wouldn't recommend trying to do what I do. I would recommend setting up something that works for you and trying to build on it, because if you shoot too high and you get discouraged, you're going to stop. And it's better to do less.
Short-term goals head to long-term goals.
Lots of short-term goals. Why? Because when you meet your goals, it's motivating. And so I always set very short-term goals all the time. I'd meet them, and then it was motivating, and I could increase the goals. And, if you've been struggling, people have heard me say this 10 times probably, but I'll say it one more time because we're always getting new audience, and unfortunately, there's always new stroke survivors. And that is if you've been struggling to do, say you're doing modified push-ups and you can do 6, but you can't do 7. And one day all of a sudden you do 7. What's the goal for tomorrow? Nope.
6.
Not 7. It's 6 again. 7 if you can, but 6 is okay because that's what you were doing. You can't go 7.
Even if you only get 5, you're still there.
Right.
Get the
Some
big one
people
up.
go,
Still
oh,
good.
I did 7 yesterday. They forget the fact it took them like a month to get from 6 to 7. And, I did 7 yesterday. So the goal tomorrow is 8. Well, guess what?
Yeah, nothing wrong with building up on it.
Yeah.
Right.
And you can always take a step back and restart at that too. I mean, it doesn't hurt if you say, okay, one day it just didn't work today. Okay.
Right.
My brother's a big gym aficionado, and he's all about the reps.
You don't know when you're going to get down on the mat, whether you're going to have one of those days or not. So that's why the goal is, well, I'm going to do 6 and 7 if I can. It's not 8. It's not 7. It's 6, and let's hope I can do 8. I'm going to try really hard. 7. The goal is 6. I'm going to try and do 7 again like I did yesterday. And guess what? If you do 7 again the next day, then maybe you could set 7 as the goal, but I wouldn't up it to 8. I wouldn't up it until you're doing 7 consistently.
Yeah, I mean, you think about it, professional athletes have bad days too. So we're allowed to have a bad day because we're training just about like them anyway.
Right. Well, I mentioned
And it's the large paycheck.
I mentioned stubborn people do better in recovery because they won't give up. The other group that does the best in recovery are people who are athletic or have ever trained for anything, because if you train for anything, like you're a runner and you have a stroke, And you were running, let's say, a 5K, and you can run a 5K in, well, I spent a year, I was at 20 minutes and 30 seconds, and I wanted to break 20 minutes. I was 40, this was before my stroke. I was late 40s, and I wanted to break 20 minutes, which is pretty good for a 5K and at that age. Now, the guys that were winning it in 15.
15 or less, yeah.
Yeah, not too many people break 15, but anyway, I have a friend who's winning 5Ks. He was winning the overall and the masters. He was over 40, and he would win the overall race. But he had an enlarged heart like Lance Armstrong, so not badly enlarged heart. He had an abnormally large heart like Lance Armstrong does. Anyway, so it took me 6 months of training to get that 30 seconds off my 5K time. And I finally, one time, broke 20 minutes. And then next time I ran it, I didn't. It was like 20 minutes and 10 seconds again. Did I consider that a failure? No, because I'd started the year at 20 minutes and 30 or 40 seconds. So athletes do well because they understand that goals are long-term. So a lot of people in stroke recovery, it's their first time, getting involved in,
Being challenged, yeah.
and stuff, and they end up, getting frustrated because they don't understand that it's not going to happen overnight. And athletes understand that, and they've worked towards something long-term, so they tend to do real well. So anyway, I guess we ought to wrap this up, John.
Okay.
We could probably do this like, every other week for the rest of our lives, but
Oh, well, I'm enjoying it, gentlemen. Thank you so much.
no problem. We're glad you got that.
Yeah, glad you make it. Haven't seen you in a while. It's nice to see you.
Yeah, it's good to see you. And Mindy said she got a lot out of it, so that's why we do it. We also do it for all you people out there in YouTube land.
Yeah,
And if you're watching,
Greatly appreciate it, guys. Greatly.
if you're watching this, you're already on my channel, go to playlists. You can find things organized by body part like shoulder, ankle, walking better, hand, stuff like that. And somewhere in there is the interactive counter exercises. You can always search it. I should post it again. All right.
I think you should.
John,
Yep.
thank you as always. And
Appreciate you, Ralph. Appreciate everybody there.
Thank you.
all right,
Mindy, nice seeing you again.
Thank you so
Right.
very much.
Definitely nice seeing you again.
we'll see everybody next time.
Do all you can with what you have, in the time you have, in the place you are. Do all you can. Do all you can.